Hey, welcome back to the NorthWoods Church Matters Podcast. My name is Bobby Pell. I'm the lead pastor here at NorthWoods, and I am the interim guest host to the NorthWoods Church Matters Podcast. Some may ask, well, how long are you going to do that? I have no idea, but we'll figure that out and move along. And so today...
I just wish people could see your face as they said that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, looking around the room.
I'm with Matt Higgins and Rachel Bland, and we're going to talk Southern Baptist education and really just generally education in general today. This is going to be a fun podcast.
It will be. Ex-host of NorthWoods Church Matters Podcast.
Yeah, well, you've definitely got a greater baritone voice than I do. So.
Radio host over there.
So in the room, what degrees have y'all earned from where, when, and maybe even what form was your education, if that makes sense? Inline, online, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have too many degrees. I have a Bachelor of Science from James Madison University, and then a Master of Public Administration from Virginia Commonwealth University. That's when I was young and I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And then the Lord changed my path, and then I got a Master of Divinity from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, which is a Southern Baptist institution. And then I have a Doctor of Ministry from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky.
And we'll talk a little bit about more of how Southern Baptist has this thing. Southern Baptist Seminary has this, the Southern Baptist.
The. I jokingly call it the Harvard of SBC seminaries, so it's all good.
Yeah.
So your bachelor's goes back all the way to what year?
My bachelor's goes back to 95 because I graduated high school in 92. Graduated college in 95, and then got my first master's degree in 97. So I really thought I knew what I wanted to do with life.
Yeah, you went in a clear direction.
Yeah, my wife and I, we got master's degrees early on to get it over with, and we are using neither one of those degrees right now.
What was hers then?
A master's of social work. So she's kind of doing it, but not what she originally intended to do.
She's doing social work, but not the plan for her social work.
Exactly. She's doing school counseling, which is kind of school adjacent, but most people that have a social work degree in school, they are doing actual social work job.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Cool. Rachel?
You graduated in 95?
Hey, move on.
Yes, I did. I graduated high school in 92.
That's when I was born, Matt. So
move on, Rachel.
Okay, so for me, my years just start later. So in 2014, I got my Bachelor's of Science in middle grades education from Western Kentucky University.
Right. Okay.
And so did that in 2014. Then taught for 6 years. And then the law in Kentucky says that you have to get your master's in a certain amount of window time. So I actually went to Murray State, and I think I did that in 2018, 2019. And as I was pursuing that was all completely online. I actually never graduated with the degree, though. I finished all of the coursework for it, and that was just in creative writing. So Master's of English with creative writing as an emphasis. But I just never took the test that you had to do because you had to read 219 books, which I love reading. But these were all old English ones, and I was not into that. So then I started working here at NorthWoods and wasn't really sure if I would ever go get another degree. I was low-key pressured. Not really, but just being around people who are pursuing education makes you want to pursue education as well. So both.
She says low-key pressure. Let's go ahead and call out names. I pressured her and encouraged her to further her theological education.
Yes.
I don't mind admitting that at all.
I wasn't going to throw you under the bus.
I don't consider it thrown under a bus.
But I am very grateful that I did it. So I went to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and I am representing. I actually have a sweatshirt on with them today. Wow. And so I started in 2024, like January of 2024, and I completed it all in a year. And so I have a Master's of Arts from there in women's ministry. And so did that in a year, and I did everything online except for one class, which was like a conference class. I had to go to a conference, and that was in person. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, everything was online.
Cool. So I graduated high school in 1988.
Long before me.
Long before you. I graduated with my Bachelor of Science in Pastoral Studies from Tennessee Temple University in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That was 1993. I may have already said that. That school is closed. That is an independent Baptist school that is known in the independent fundamental world. And I went the year I graduated with my bachelor's degree in pastoral studies to Indiana, and started a New Life Baptist Church in Greencastle. So as a church planter, I look back on that and see a lot of God's grace and kindness in my life, because I was 23 and probably way too young to have done that. Somewhere around, I don't know, 97-ish, 98, I took some classes at Moody Bible Institute. That was traveling back and forth for a Master's of Arts in Ministry, and took some classes there, traveling up to Chicago. And Moody Bible Institute is not a Southern Baptist education, but it was very helpful. And then I developed seizures and could no longer travel back and forth, and really paused my education and went to an unaccredited seminary, which I would not encourage you to do if you plan on furthering your education, which is a whole story.
In any field.
In any field.
Yeah.
For sure.
In any field. I went to Covington Theological Seminary. Let me say something good about that. I actually felt like the actual education was as good as what I had experienced at Moody. I mean, it was really good education, but it's unaccredited, and it is very limiting. And I got my Master's of Divinity from Covington. I got that I was around 2000, 2001, 2002, which is about the time I moved to Evansville. And then in 2021, so I'm 51 years old, I was approached at a state convention meeting about joining a cohort for a doctoral program to get my DMin at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, which is one of our Southern Baptist schools. And the guy who was doing it, he was in charge of the doctoral program. I told him, I said, "You don't want me." And I said, "The reason why you don't want me is because my Master's of Divinity is from an unaccredited seminary, and you're just not going to accept me." I said, "But if you want me and you don't make me take extra classes, like I don't
Leveling classes.
Right. I don't want to come in and take more classes than anybody else. But if you'll take my MDiv and you'll just accept me, man, I'll sign the line today." I said, "So is it yes or no?" I knew in my head it'd be no.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I'll get back with you." He's asked me to fill out an application, and I got accepted. And so that was I ended up graduating with my Doctor of Ministry degree in 2023 from Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, which is one of our Southern Baptist seminaries. So for those of you who are listening, you have Matt, who comes from two of our Southern Baptist seminaries, Southwestern and Southern.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel comes from New Orleans Seminary. I come from Southeastern. There's 4 of the 6 Southern Baptist seminaries. The other 2 is Midwestern and Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
And
which several people from Lifeway Women have done Gateway Seminary. There's a lot of people from Gateway Seminary that do Lifeway stuff.
Right.
And when I was looking at the numbers, because Ed Stetzer puts out every year kind of this top seminaries by full-time equivalent students.
Yeah.
And number 1 in the country of all denominations is Liberty. Liberty has almost 5,000 full-time equivalent students. But then second is Southern at almost 2,000 full-time equivalent students. But then third is actually Midwestern.
Wow.
With 1,587.
Wow.
Third in the country. And Kansas City is kind of up and coming. Then Dallas Theological Seminary, Southeastern, Southwestern, and New Orleans. So
wow.
We have, in the top 10 largest seminaries, we got
5 of the top 7.
5 of the top. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, Matt, I'm interested, how did you determine to go from Virginia to Texas?
We were switching careers, and Dana was not. And so she was already doing school counseling, and she needed a location that would accept her accreditation from the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
And so we looked at a couple different seminary options, and it turns out the state of Texas is more reciprocal and friendly than anywhere else. We looked at Southeastern because that would have been a whole lot closer to Virginia, which is our homeland, but they wouldn't accept Dana's school accreditation. And so we sojourned out to Fort Worth, Texas, and intended to move back to Virginia after that. And that's never happened.
Yeah.
We're still here.
Yeah. Right. And personally, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Me too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you determine New Orleans?
Well, I think you have to look at the program too, like just whatever program you're interested in pursuing for ministry. And so for me, it was just looking at what kind of classes would I have to take, and then what does the program offer, and is it online? Because Evansville, I mean, really Southern is closest to Evansville. And so like, what could I do? Basically distance learner kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the online programming was super attractive from NOBTS. And then also just NorthWoods has a great relationship with NOBTS. And so us partnering together has been, we'll talk about that more later, but just like the partnership that NorthWoods has with NOBTS was a big reason why I ended up choosing to go there. So yeah, ministry to women and NorthWoods.
Yeah. And later on, when I got my doctorate of ministry, it was more of a theological choice plus a philosophy of ministry choice, because I was pursuing biblical counseling as my track in getting my doctorate of ministry, and Southern more aligned with my philosophy of counseling. And so that was why I navigated over that direction. Southwestern, to be honest with you, was just kind of more of like practical.
Yeah.
When we were younger, I don't know that we really knew what we were looking for in a seminary. We just knew that Dana could work.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But
that matters. That definitely matters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So just using the counseling piece as a position,
Yeah.
not all of the SBC seminaries have the same counseling philosophy.
That's correct.
That's right.
That's correct. Yeah. So I'd say the majority of our seminaries advocate for biblical counseling, which is outside of the sphere of state-sponsored, accredited counseling. And so really what biblical counseling is churches doing discipleship that's very intensive with people that have real-world needs. And so that's where my heart is. I want to be able to read the Bible with people, study the Bible with people, pray with people, dig into what Jesus has to say about people's life and problems. And that fits with the philosophy of Southern. The one program that is different is New Orleans has a more of an integrative view of counseling, which is they're preparing you to be counselors in a secular setting.
Mm-hmm.
And their emphasis is we want you to be a Christian exerting influence in a secular field.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas biblical counseling is just saying the church has a lot to offer in terms of counseling people and discipling people. And we want our churches to do more of that.
That's right. And New Orleans a little bit has a picture of being a missionary.
Exactly.
In the workplace.
In the workplace.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. How can I as a Christian exert influence in a secular field? Just if I was at a seminary studying to be an elementary school teacher.
Right.
And then going into a secular field and being a Christian. There was a book that came out back in the 90s. It's called Roaring Lions. And it was trying to advocate that we need more people in the world that want to be Christians in a secular field. Mm-hmm. That you can still be a Christian called out to be in a secular environment and doing what the Lord calls you to do and be an influence there. And I wholeheartedly still agree with that. We do need Christians.
In the workplace.
Yeah. We're lawyers, doctors, you name it.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So our church is a Southern Baptist church. We've mentioned 6 Southern Baptist seminaries. I guess let me pause and say this. Let me give a shout out to Chris Combs, because this whole podcast is really coming from him asking for what educational institutions does NorthWoods endorse. And let me just say, we would endorse some educational institutions that are not Southern Baptist. They're not the all in all in SBC. There are some blessings in the fact that SBC, Southern Baptist seminaries, are able to give some blessings to our churches in probably more ways than one. Can y'all help flesh some of that out?
So cooperative programming is sort of how SBC is set up. Basically, a part of everyday giving that you give on Sunday mornings a piece of that goes to this thing called the cooperative program. And then the cooperative program divides out into giving that money to the seminaries. And so I actually had to do a project on that in my Baptist class through seminary. And basically, if you give $100 to the church, literally 1 penny ends up going to New Orleans, is how you have to track it. 1 penny of that $100 ends up going to NOBTS. And that one penny adds up over time with everybody else that is affiliated with SBC churches. And that giving becomes greater because of that. And so then because of that, the SBC seminaries offer a discount to any member of an SBC church because they're already giving to the cooperative program, basically giving to the seminaries for the institution. So you get, I think it's 50% off if you're a part of an SBC church.
Yeah. The whole philosophy is we're going to take part of our offerings as Southern Baptists and use them to invest in the future, which is, I think, wise.
Right.
Because a lot of denominations, they're really shrinking in this area that they're not investing in the future pastors and leaders of their denominations. And so it's paying off. And one of the just tremendous benefits is that you do get this massive deduction in the price of seminary if you're a Southern Baptist, which you just can't beat with a stick. I mean, it really is.
That's right.
Good price for quality education. And there are other great seminaries that are out there. I mean, Liberty is a great seminary. Dallas Theological Seminary is a great seminary.
That's right.
But you're not going to get, as a Southern Baptist, the same bang for your buck at either one of those places.
Yeah, and the other piece to this is that could not have been said before Rachel was born in the 1970s and 1980s. But now we're able to say that all of our seminaries are theologically solid.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period of time in the 1970s and 80s that our Southern Baptist seminaries were liberal.
Yeah.
And that is, you can't say that now.
No, you can't say that at all.
At all. I mean, our theological institutions are conservative. They're going to produce people who have a good, biblical, solid, fundamental view of the Word of God.
Yeah. And I think historically, people need to just understand, if you didn't grow up Southern Baptist, that in the 70s, a lot of our seminaries were drifting towards liberalism, like most mainline denominations. And we had something called the conservative resurgence, where there was an intentional effort to right the ship in terms of Lifeway and some of the commentaries that were being written, but also the seminaries. And so there was a big hullabaloo. The conservatives won, and we have solidly conservative theological seminaries now. And when we talk about conservatism, we're not talking about politics.
That's right.
We're talking about theological conservatism, meaning we believe the Bible is the inerrant word of God, and we can believe and trust the Bible, and we should do what it says.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's walk through the seminaries. We represent 4 of the 6, but let's walk through each of the seminaries and just talk about the reputation of each. Because if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking about theological education, I have never been a part of a church like NorthWoods currently is, where there are as many people who are thinking about ministry and missions.
Right.
And it's exciting. But many of you who are thinking about that, you are considering where you potentially want more education. And if that's the pathway you're headed down, let's give you some perspective on the 6 seminaries. You want to start with maybe Southwestern and Southern?
Sure. Southwestern is an institution that the ship is kind of riding. I was there during a time of trouble, that there was a scandal followed by another scandal. There was a scandal involving covering up of sexual abuse. And this came out during the whole time and we still are struggling to some extent with how to handle sexual abuse in the Southern Baptist world. And then there was a scandal with another administration involving just spending of money.
Yeah.
And information came out that Southwestern Seminary was not doing financially well, and its attendance was not doing historically as well as it had been. And so there's been some very intentional effort in the current administration of that school in order to right the ship. I believe that they're doing very good, solid work right now. And so, whereas in the past, I would not have recommended somebody potentially go to Southwestern, I would in the current era right now, because they are taking some effort just to make sure that they are spending properly and they're being good stewards of Southern Baptist resources. Southern is in Louisville. One of the positive things about Southern probably has the biggest undergrad program that's out there. And so if you are somebody fresh out of high school and I want to be a pastor, they have some degrees that are there that are essentially like truncated degrees where
Yeah.
you, after 5 years, you
Yep.
can get your Master of Divinity
With your bachelor.
with your bachelor's,
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could do it over, baby, that's the button I'm hitting.
Yeah.
And we have several students from NorthWoods who have attended there.
Yeah.
And still are.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you hear Boyce College, Boyce is the undergrad arm of Southern Seminary. And I love my time at Southern. Al Moeller is the president of Southern. He has been since the 70s. He actually led the course correction back to conservatism there. He's a brilliant man. He has a podcast that he runs on a regular basis. He's talks about politics, etc. But they invest wisely in pastors, in preaching, in biblical counseling. And so they really are putting out a fine number of students who are going into different forms of leadership. And I really respect all the people that are serving and teaching there.
Yeah. So I'm looking up the websites as we're having the conversation. Southwestern would say that their theme is equipping the called.
Right.
And Southern, I love this. A lifetime of faithfulness begins with an education trusted for truth. And so just hear the truth piece and the trusting for truth.
Yeah.
And so there is this, we are the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. For those of you think the Ohio State University, I mean, it does feel like they are the Harvard, and they do lean more Reformed.
They do.
As well.
Yeah.
In their theology. And
although I would argue that most of the seminaries have shifted a little more Reformed.
I would say Southeastern has done so. Midwestern has as well.
Definitely not Southwestern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Southwestern has not.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. I would say Gateway has not. And NOBTS or New Orleans, I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah. I would say that in the earlier days of Southwestern was a missions evangelism college.
Yes, I would agree.
When you go into the old chapel, there's a big globe that's there carved on the floor. And the tradition was at one point in time where if you graduated from the seminary, you're supposed to take a penny and then throw it over your shoulder, and that's where you were going to serve.
Oh, really?
In somewhere in the world. I don't know if students are still doing that.
That's interesting.
But I think that they would argue that they still have an area of influence in there and an emphasis that's there.
There are many of those students who would have thrown a penny over their shoulder and then placed that penny in Texas.
Yes, in Dallas.
New Orleans?
Yeah, so New Orleans, like the simple thing that they always say is prepare here, serve anywhere. So if you just search their website, like you're going to see that almost instantly. But it really is something that they believe. And so I would say New Orleans is most known for just the mission side of things. If you know anything about New Orleans just as a city, it's a very dark place spiritually. Lots of just like voodoo practices. Obviously, you have the drinking stuff that happens, like Mardi Gras celebrations and all of that kind of stuff. And so just spiritually dark and spiritually broken. But what's interesting about the seminary itself is the chapel of the seminary has a giant steeple on it. Like you can see that steeple as part of the landscape of the city. And they really are trying to be the light in the darkness. And that really becomes not just like a physical representation of the seminary and what its mission is, but it really is who they are trying to be. And so as a student, when you go to NOBTS, you're really going to learn, how do I evangelize? How do I share the gospel? And you don't have to be an evangelist to learn how to do this. I mean, they are so serious about sharing the gospel. I was just super encouraged. I don't know, a few years ago, we had Dr. Chuck Kelly here, who was the former president of NOBTS. And we went as a staff, some of us went out to lunch with him. And I'll never forget this. We were at
Los Portales.
Los Portales. And he just leaned over to our waitress and he said, hey, here in a few moments, we're going to be praying. And he goes, how can I pray for you? And then the lady shared with him how we could pray for her. And then he said, in like literally 3 sentences, he was like, or maybe even one, he was like, I just want you to know that all of us sitting here at this table believe that Jesus is the Christ and that he came and lived a perfect life, died the death that we deserved in order to give us life. And that's the greatest gift you could ever receive. And we want you to believe that. And shared with this lady what he believed and what we believed and just made it look so seamless and so easy. And then he sat there and then he led us all in prayer. And I think us as a staff, we were all just sort of taken aback and just challenged by just the missional heart of even someone so well respected in the SBC world to just take time to pray for the waitress. And it was just the humility, I think, that was there as well on display. And that legacy of Dr. Chuck Kelly is still present there now, even with Dr. Jamie Dew, who's now the president there, just in the sense of, we want you to be missional. We want you to share Jesus. And even in the workplace, like what Matt was alluding to earlier with even getting your counseling degree and it being worldly licensed or secular licensed, not just ACBC certified. And I think that really is the heart of New Orleans. They really desire you to be able to share the gospel anywhere. So to prepare at NOBTS and serve anywhere, whether that's in the secular world or in vocational ministry.
That's good. And we'll come back to New Orleans in just a few moments when we talk about partnership. I graduated from Southeastern, and I would just say Southeastern's emphasis is 100% Great Commission.
Where is Southeastern?
Southeastern is in Wake Forest, North Carolina.
And you did yours online.
That's an important question because let me go ahead and mention, if you happen to take the classes we're going to be offered, the classes are going to be much more in a cohort format. So for me, let me go ahead and describe that cohort. There was work that I had to do beforehand. I would go to class, and it was my responsibility to be prepared to talk about what I had read and worked on before class. If the teacher's going to call on me, this is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They're going to call on you, and you are going to respond with, what did you learn from the reading? And so the teacher will add to, the facilitator is going to add to some things that I didn't know. But the majority of the work is learning from each other and what everyone else was learning in a group session. And so most all of my work was cohort, most live. We actually did it here at Highland Lakes Baptist Camp here in Indiana. Guys came from Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, and one guy came from Texas, all to Highland Lakes, and participated. And a few of my cohort classes were, like I did one with Chuck Lawless, and that was online. Most of it was live as a cohort, but not on campus.
I'm sorry to interrupt your thought, but I also think it varies on the degree you're pursuing. So master's is a little bit different than getting your doctorate. And then even your doctorate, some people are choosing to get the PhD or the DMin. Doctor of Ministry. I was like, I can't remember what the other one is. So just sort of the class structure or the form of which you're taking the class can be different based off of the program.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that. So the way the process, for those of you who are just thinking through this, bachelor's is the degree right after you get your high school diploma. Once you have your bachelor's, if you want to further your education, you go get your master's. After your master's degree, it's a doctorate. There are different master's programs. In theology, the largest master's is a Master's of Divinity. And then your 2 doctorates that you can get. Well, actually, there's probably more than 2 doctorates, but there's the Doctor of Ministry, which is much more practical.
Sure.
Like yours was in counseling.
Yes. Yeah.
And mine was in pastoral theology. And the other is more of a research doctorate, which is a PhD. And that's a research doctorate, which I did not get. And that was intentional. I'm a pastor, and I wanted to do something practical.
Right. Yeah, because the PhDs they're teaching degrees, essentially. They're training to be seminary professors.
Right.
That's one I would probably get.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so let's briefly address the other seminaries. Midwestern, which is the second largest Southern Baptist seminary, their theme is for the church. Everything they do is for the church. And they're very local church centered. And I'm not so sure that's not why they're not growing. Yeah. Jason Allen is the president of Midwestern and is doing a wonderful job. It's in Kansas City, and it's not that far from us. There are people in Evansville who attend non-Southern Baptist churches who are getting their degrees from Midwestern, both at CFC and Crossroads. Pastors there are getting their degrees from Midwestern. They just don't get the Southern Baptist break. And then the last one that I'll mention is Gateway Seminary, which actually has 3 locations that I know of, one in California, one in Arizona, and one in Canada. And I do not know what their theme is, but they're known for doing most of their work online and producing foreign missionaries, cross-cultural missions. So Jeff Org used to be the president of Gateway and did a wonderful job in developing Gateway Seminary.
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge controversy back when I was in high school, was Gateway selling their campus, because they had a campus in San Francisco, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
They sold that and went in a different direction. I think that a lot of the way that seminary has changed was just the internet.
Right.
And one of the reasons why Liberty is what it is right now was that they were pioneers in internet-based education.
Yep, that's right.
And I think that our seminaries that hugged that concept well, and I think Midwestern is one of those, and then Southern, they have seen the fruits of that, because there's more and more people that want degrees that they don't want to move to Louisville, a location that may be remote to them.
That's right.
And it just helps. And so I think Southwestern was slow to embrace internet education, and I think they paid the price for that as well.
And so let's move to the partnership that our church has with New Orleans Seminary. We are being allowed by New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary to teach accredited classes because our church has a church planting residency. And they are allowing us to teach classes to anyone who wants to take accredited master's level classes. We're specifically being allowed to teach a degree that is, you can get a 2-year degree in ministry leadership. It's a Master's of Arts in Ministry Leadership. It is taking fall, spring, summer. So there's basically 3 semesters a year is what there is. And so we'll be teaching a total of 6 classes. We will outline the classes that you'll need to take online on top of that in order to be able to get that degree. All of those classes would also be able to be transferred into a Master's of Divinity degree if you chose to go and say, well, I don't just want that degree. I want an MDiv. Well, if you do, you can. You can get 2 master's degrees if you want. We're scheduled to have an informational meeting on May the 20th at 6 p.m. We're going to do that in room 101. And so just give me some thoughts about what y'all are thinking about the fact that we're able to do that here at NorthWoods, and what do you encourage people who are thinking about furthering their education? What comes to your mind?
Well, I would say first, if you are listening to this, wherever you're at in your education, like the classes we are teaching are master's level. So it would require a bachelor's degree, but that bachelor's degree does not have to be from a seminary. It doesn't have to be from Boyce College, or it doesn't have to have a Christian background. So like you heard Matt talk about his secular degrees, you heard me talk about my secular degrees. Those degrees are literally like our bachelor's of science from previous accredited universities. Those are transferable. And so you can use those as your bachelor's when you're entering. But I would just say the best part, I think, about furthering your education just for a regular believer, it's not so much just about the master's degree that you're getting, but I think it's really just learning more about Jesus and how can you grow. Like you just really want to throw kerosene on the fire of what Christ is doing in your heart, then come to these classes. But we would love to have you be a part of it. I think it's almost like discipleship on steroids, because if you think about class in general, like you're in it almost every single day, which is a lot different than just meeting with someone weekly for discipleship or even every other week for discipleship. So you're really going to see your relationship with the Lord grow and be challenged in ways that you haven't been challenged just by discipleship alone. And so I think this is a great way to just get started and to just see. And I also don't think that if you are someone who, if you're like, I really don't know if I'm called into the ministry, or I know, like I'll speak for my husband here for just a second, like he's a nurse. He's full.
You never spoke
I know, right?
For your husband before.
But Alec,
This is a whole new concept for me. Blowing my mind.
I know. So for those of you who don't know, Alec is a nurse and that's like his vocation, but he's already taken some seminary classes already, and it's helped him just grow as a believer. And so you don't hear this and go, oh man, like I now need to work full time at NorthWoods or a church or something like that. really these, like the degree itself, say the degree again.
Ministry leadership.
Yeah, ministry leadership. You literally are learning how to do ministry in your workplace, and it applies not just at the local church. We're going to probably talk about that, but it's so much more beyond that. This is life development, not just ministry specific.
I guess let me follow that up just by saying someone who used to attend here at NorthWoods at 2 different time periods actually is Stan Barringer. Stan was a lawyer for Bristol Myers. Stan was a great Sunday school teacher when our church, this goes back to 2005 through, 2012 maybe. And he was just very beneficial to NorthWoods. Stan retired from Bristol Myers, a lawyer, went to Southern Seminary for one purpose, to be a better Sunday school teacher. So you don't have to further your education and commit yourself to saying, I'm going to move to Africa.
Right.
You can further your education for the purpose of saying, I want to know more about Jesus.
Right.
Now, do you have to know more about Jesus by furthering your education by getting a master's degree? No. But I do think it is an option, a option that some people might want to pull the lever on is saying, I want to further my education, and in the process, the very first class that we're going to be teaching is discipleship and spiritual formation.
Which is an awesome class. I've taken it.
Okay. That's a good class for you to consider. We're a church that makes disciples who makes disciples. I think this fits in the natural flow of who we are. So to your point that I just want to agree with, I don't think you have to say, I'm called into ministry. I'm going to do this for my vocation for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where our seminaries in recent years have done well. In the time of the 70s, 80s, if you wanted to get a seminary degree, the seminary degree that was offered was a Master of Divinity, period. And so, for example, the Southwestern Seminary MDiv degree, when I went there, was 90 hours. And so when, in comparison, my first master's degree was 30 hours. That's a big old degree. And so it can be prohibitive thinking about, well, I just want to be a Sunday school teacher and grow. And yet the only thing that's offered is a 90-hour degree.
Right.
And now our seminaries really are, one of the reasons they're flourishing is they are offering these type of alternative type of degrees for lay people or people that just want to grow in their faith, or they want some basic Christian education and they don't want to be a full-time pastor. And these are all legitimate uses of seminary. And praise the Lord that those things are being offered.
One of the things that you may be asking is concerning these classes, who's going to be teaching them? And I would just say 3 of the people who will be teaching them are people who are in the room. Matt's going to be teaching, Rachel's going to be assisting in some of these classes, and I'll be assisting in some of these classes. And so we're going to flip this around and make it work and then go forward from there. And so technically, any of our pastors have the theological background that allows New Orleans Seminary to say, yes, we will allow you to teach, and still the accreditation is not in any way compromised. And that's a blessing for NorthWoods, and also was a blessing for New Orleans in the process. One of the other pieces to this is you may be somebody who's like, I'd like to take the class, but I don't want to do it for credit. If that's your perspective, come to the informational meeting. Either way, I just want to strongly encourage you, you need to come to the informational meeting. And so that information meeting matters. You're able to sign up for the informational meeting via our Church Planning Center app, and we would encourage you to do so. This really is something that is not common. I would propose to you that in Indiana, at the very least, the state, we are the only place that you're going to find this. And so this really is an exciting moment. Thank you guys for participating. We'll talk to y'all soon. We're signing out. See y'all.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to NorthWoods Church Matters. You can learn more about NorthWoods Church at northwoodschurch.org or follow us on Facebook and Instagram at NorthWoods Church EVV.